Love your neighbor as yourself. The golden rule, a timeless principle that begs the question, what if you don't love yourself? One quick thought today, what is self-hate and what does God say about it? Self-hate, as defined in an article that I read called What is Self-Loathing? Self-loathing or self-hatred is extreme criticism of oneself. It may feel as though nothing you do is good enough or that you're unworthy or undeserving of good things in life. Self-hatred is a very challenging thing, but God answers the questions about self-hatred that we have. And here's the truth. All of us experience forms of self-hatred. All of us experience the negativity that comes with self-criticism. Every single one of us. So the first thing to look at with self-hatred is Proverbs 15:13. Self-hatred keeps us from believing or dreaming. And Proverbs 15:13, I use the amplified version here. A heart full of joy and goodness makes a cheerful face. But when a heart is full of sadness, the spirit is crushed. When we have self-hateful and self-critical thoughts about ourselves, it takes away our joy. It takes away the look on our face, being happy. It makes it difficult for us to love other people. That's why, in essence, the golden rule is a call to seek out God and understand how God loves us so we can not only love ourselves, but we can love others. But when we allow self-hatred to run free, when we allow our self-critical thoughts to run free, when we give free rein to the negativity that comes with discouragement or circumstantial or momentary failure, it ends up filling our heart with sadness and crushing our spirit. Our spirit's our personality. It's our enthusiasm. It's our energy for life. All of that gets crushed, and we end up being sad because we don't know how to stop the self-hatred. And once we get sad enough and once we get crushed enough, we stop believing and we stop dreaming. God has an answer for that. Self-hatred, it keeps us from seeing or using our gifts. When we stop believing and dreaming and we're negative on ourselves, we can't see or use our gifts. Now, I've experienced this a lot in my life. And what happened is that on many occasions, I was so negative or self-critical that I didn't even try to use my abilities. And most of that was because I couldn't see them through all of the self-critical thoughts that I was having, through all the doubtful thoughts I was having. Self-hatred comes in many forms. Again, it can keep us from believing and dreaming, but here it can keep us from seeing or using our gifts. In Proverbs 15:4, when you speak healing words, you offer others fruit from the tree of life. But unhealthy, negative words do nothing but crush their hopes. Now, this scripture is talking about how we talk to people. But guess what? The person we may talk to the most is ourselves. I know that's true of me. And what it says here is when we have unhealthy and negative words coming at ourselves, when we have self-talk in our minds, in our hearts, we're having unhealthy thoughts about ourselves and negative thoughts about ourselves, we can actually put ourselves in a position where we can't see or use our gifts. And when we can't see or use our gifts, we don't get the feedback that comes when we use our gifts and people say, wow, that really helped me. Wow, that really changed my life. Self-hatred. Here's the good news. God's love conquers our self-hatred. In Psalm 23, verse 4, Lord, even when your path takes me through the valley of deepest darkness, fear will never conquer me, for you already have. You remain close to me and lead me through it all the way. Your authority is my strength and my peace. The comfort of your love takes away my fear. I'll never be lonely, for you are near. You know, when I was a young kid, I used to boast a lot. I'd go around and brag. It wasn't initially because in elementary school and middle school, I actually was one of these quiet kids, and some of that was because I was like, okay, I'm good at science, I'm good at reading, I'm gonna be myself and sort of set myself off not as a complete loner, but sort of a loner, and I'm just going to stay safe. And safety is staying away from people who could make me feel bad about myself. And unfortunately, that was anybody who was better than me at anything. as I got a little bit better at different things in athletics and then discovered through the help of teachers that I was a bit of a leader, I ended up becoming boastful. But here's the reason I became boastful. Here's the reason I became arrogant. It was because inside, even though I was achieving things, I was still very negative on myself. I couldn't stop the negative, doubtful thoughts about myself. And so I tried to quiet them by not letting anybody know I had them. And I tried to quiet them by saying outwardly to people boastful things, thinking I was going to silence the negative voices inside my head. I was wrong. I couldn't do it. Here's the thing about human beings. Alone, we can't solve the problem of negative, doubtful, and critical thoughts. And even with human beings, we can't. I had plenty of people in my life tell me, you're good at this, you're good at that, I like you. But guess what? Those wear off. They're like the morning rain. Once the sun comes out, it starts to dry up. We need something that lasts. And in Psalm 23, verse 4, it's talking about the love and the comfort of God. God is always there. God knows us best. And God can bond with us in a way that no other human being can. Because God can bond with us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in our soul, and even physically. And that's why he says here, the psalmist in chapter 23, I was in my deep, dark moments. When we get really hating ourselves, we go to deep, dark moments. And the only thing that can pull us out is the constancy of God's love. That means there's no way that God is going to ever stop loving us. Now, this is a hard concept sometimes because we can't believe we're lovable, but that's exactly why we need to let God into our lives. Now, let's finish with this. There were 7 self-haters that I pulled aside. People for whom God's love changed them, and as a result, they changed the world. Sarah, she was the wife of Abraham. Without her, you don't get Christianity. She said when God came to her and said, even though you haven't had a child for all these decades and you're in your 90s, you're going to have one now. And you know what she said? God, go away. I'm too old to dream. Guess what God said? You can laugh and you can say that if you want, but I'm here and you're going to have that kid. God didn't care what negative self-critical feelings Sarah had. He said, my purposes and my dream are bigger than your negative thoughts. That's why God's love saved Sarah from being a self-hater. Moses' story is long, but he failed. Committed murder. He ran away to the desert, got married, built a family out in the hinterlands, in the rural areas where no one could find him again. But guess what? God found him. That's right, God found him. Moses had convinced himself he was a failure. And God found him, and even when God found him, God said, hey, I need you to go rescue your people and become a hero. And Moses was like, I'm no hero, find someone else. And you know what God said? He goes, I have found someone else, and that someone else is you. Moses had all these negative thoughts about his past, and God said, your negative thoughts about your past don't matter because my love is bigger than your negative thoughts about your past. Naomi, she lost her husband and her sons. All she had left was her daughters-in-law. Her daughters-in-law said, let's hang, we'll stick with you. She said, don't hang with me, I'm cursed. Can't you see what happened to me? 2 things happened. God put it in the heart of Ruth, one of her daughter-in-laws, to say, I'm never leaving you. No matter what, your God will be my God. Where you die, I'm going to die. And through Ruth, God expressed his love for Naomi. And you got to go back and read the book of Luke because her life was not cursed. It was ultimately blessed. Why? Because God said tragedy happens to everyone, but my love sticks by you even through tragedy. David, this guy was a phenomenal warrior, phenomenal king, but one day he didn't want to go out and do what he needed to do to stay in line with the presence of God, the guidance of God. He just had one bad day. That one bad day turned to adultery and murder. It's amazing how one bad day can ruin our life. And so God was going to him and God was talking to him and said, hey, okay, we're going to keep this thing going. You're still going to be king. There are going to have to be some adjustments. You're going to have some consequences, but you're still going to be king. But guess what? David was like, I feel too guilty. How can I go on? I just feel too guilty. And you know what God said to David in the conversation in Psalm 51? David comes to this conclusion. God's love is greater than our guilt. It doesn't matter if we hate ourselves because of our guilt. And guess what? There's nobody in the world who can forgive us to the extent we need to be forgiven other than God. Only God, as it says in Psalm 51, can erase the stain of guilt. Esther lost her parents. And she said, I'm just going to survive. Mordecai, my cousin, is taking care of me. I don't have any illusions. Get a good job, get married, live my life. And then one day, God was like, I think I need you to be queen of the whole nation. Esther was like, I know, queen. And God said, I love you enough. I know why I created you. I know why you were born. And sometimes the Esther in all of us cannot believe in the big vision God has for us. And what the real question is not the vision, it's believing in God's love. Esther did not think she could do it. She had self-critical thoughts. She was not somebody who knew how to handle herself in the king's court. And God said, it doesn't matter about the king's court. It only matters what happens in my court. And in my court, I'm loving you all the way. And that's how Esther overcame her self-doubt. Elijah, man, he was a superhero. And then that superhero got scared and he went down the tubes, lost his confidence, and started hiding out and running away. He, in fact, said, I'm no better than my ancestors. You ever sit back and go, man, I've had people in my family in the past, they were criminals, they were bad people, they used drugs, they did whatever it is that you consider to be negative. Elijah felt like that. And God said, I'm not really here to have a conversation about your ancestors, I'm here to have a conversation about your destiny. Because God's love can overcome the self-hate we have when we feel like we're a failure. And Peter, man, when Jesus found Peter, the first thing Peter said to him is, go away from me, Lord, I'm a sinful man. He didn't even give God a chance. Are you like that? Am I like that? Well, we're so down on ourselves, we won't even give God a chance. Guess what? Peter told Jesus to go away, and Jesus said, I'm not going away. In fact, you're coming with me. And as a result, Peter becomes the guy who preaches the first gospel sermon in the New Testament in Acts chapter 2, where 3,000 people end up being saved in one day, in a few hours. Why? Because no matter what self-hateful thoughts we have, God, His love, conquers it. And when God's love changes us, we can be used to change the world. Let's get on out there. Remember, keep watching One Quick Thought. Subscribe to Deep Spirituality. There's some wonderful mini quiet times you can look at on this. We'll see you next week.